Next week you have the choice between category romance or men's adventure. Well, that is if you want to do the weekly prompts for GarbAugust. And GarbAugust is all about the celebrating of pulp fiction. But today I am going to combine the men's adventure prompt with my long ongoing pulp project, where I read one pulp story for every year starting in 1890. Hi, I'm Annie, by the way, and we have landed in the year 1895. And for this men's adventure novel, I read The Adventures of Captain Horn, which was a serialized pulp story in the magazine, Short Stories magazine. And this was written by Frank R. Stockton. And I thought I was going to get plenty of manly adventure and manly action things. Regrettably, there was not much of that in this story. But I was entertained by it anyway. This story is about Captain Horn, and he is shipwrecked with some of his crew and some of his passengers. And that is he lands on a beach near Peru. And after he has sent some of his crew out to get help, he finds this treasure. An Inca treasure, and that it means loads and loads of gold. So I thought, now we're going to get some really nice action and intrigues. But it is only 72% in the story that there is real suspense added in this story. So I thought that was a little bit of a pity. But there were plenty of nuggets in this story to keep me entertained and to keep me want to finish this adventure novel. And the story is not so, like I said, not so much about the intrigue and the stuff. The story is about how Captain Horn is going to get his treasure smuggled out of Peru without anybody knowing it, and into his converted into his bank account. Interesting is that there is talk about to whom this treasure belongs. So there are some conscientious people that ask this question. And there are, there is someone, Miss Markham, Miss Edna Markham, who is really an interesting character and some sort of Inca specialist. And she's very intelligent and emancipated. I like her character very much. But she states that, well, shouldn't this treasure belong to the descendants of the Incas? But it is in the end concluded that there are no pure blood relations or descendants of pure blood alive to make them the right owners of the treasure. As well, they married maybe Spaniards or white people or whatever. So it is concluded that the story belongs to the treasure belongs to the finder of it, and that is Captain Horn. So this story, I can't otherwise conclude that this story is about the robbing of an Inca treasure. But how was Captain Horn to know this? He didn't, of course, because he wasn't aware of any of how many Inca people there were still living. But Miss Markham, she must have known. She was an intelligent woman and she knew a lot about the Incas. And even now, there are still Inca descendants of the Incas living in Peru, in Bolivia, in Ecuador, who can be seen as the pure descendants of the old and ancient Inca people. And these are people who speak the same language, which is Quechua, if I am pronouncing this correctly. And that is the way the old Incas spoke. And they have still old rituals that they still practice, that go back to the ancient Incas. So there are definitely Inca descendants still living today. So still they must have been living back in I think this story is set in 1884 or something, if I'm remembering this correctly. So I think Miss Markham should have known this. But otherwise, I found this story, it had some interesting characters in it, although, like I said, it is a slow burner, if I'm expressing myself correctly. And but there are still nuggets to be found even in the slow parts of this story. Captain Horn gets into trouble, but most of the time there are coincidences that rescues him from his troubles and problems. So I found this a little bit of a pity. I would have liked to see some sort of super villain in the story, but there are villains in this story, but I never get the feeling that these are a real threat to Captain Horn. As coincidences, it just eliminate them from the story. But there are, like I said, nuggets in this story, and that comes in the form of two interesting characters. I already mentioned Miss Edna Markham, and she is really an emancipated woman. She states that, women are equally adept in standing guard than men. And, she is emancipated, and throughout the story she makes her own decisions. And she has this little brother, Ralph, who is wise beyond his years. And I also find him an interesting character. I like the way he thinks and the way he talks. Not only he is talks more like an adult, but I like the way he thinks. He is skeptical, and it's sometimes even cynical how he talks. He makes very intelligent remarks, like he thinks Captain Horn is a tyrant. And indeed, most of the captains were authoritarian people, bordering to tyrannical. because, well, that's the way a ship was run back in those days, in the late 19th century. So that is a keen observation of Ralph. But there is one point in the story where there is a fake marriage. Well, not really a fake marriage, but an improvised marriage, more like. But he states it, Ralph states it, that it is more, it seemed more like taking the first degree in widowhood. And indeed, Captain Horn takes it into account that he doesn't get out of this adventure alive. So I found that really, Ralph is really an interesting character. The story has also, of course, some of the common problems which are present in literature in the late 19th century, as in 1895 colonialism was still a big thing. Some African descendants are described as being poor, ignorant people, and yet two of them are being described as speaking two languages, and one of them is described as being intelligent. But there is one character in this story, Mrs. Cliff, and she is a Christian missionary, and she describes the original inhabitants of Peru as wretched savages who don't deserve the treasure, as they don't know how to spend it in a responsible manner. So it's not something that I would agree with, and yeah, it's I think, like so many writers of his time, of Stockton's time, well, he was a product of his time, and he just reflects the way the people thought back then. If you're looking for a thrilling man's adventure story, this isn't the story for you, I'm afraid, as it has really a slow pacing, and it hasn't much manly adventure and action in it. So if you are looking for action and adventure, this is not the story for you. I haven't read any other novels that have naval things in it or pirate stuff in it. So, but I hear the Hornblower novels are pulp novels that have a lot of manly things and action going on in it and are really adventurous. So pick up one of those novels if you like that sort of thing. On the other hand, The Adventures of Captain Horn is free and available on Project Gutenberg, link in the description box below. So if you like a slow burn story and like some nuggets of interesting characters, feel free to read it for week 2 of GarbAugust Man's Adventure if you like. Meanwhile, keep those pulp juices flowing, and I hope to see you in the next video.